All right, I'm trying to.
All right, we're gonna do some old school stuff, and Rob, feel free to sing if you know the tune. Okay.
I just remember him going, "Little soul shaker." Soul shaker. Oh man,
Love removal machine.
love it, love it. Does everybody love the Cult?
Oh my god.
Man, the Cult they're so awesome in the '80s, man. You know,
Yeah, and you know what? No one talks about them anymore. They were just an
it's a
incredible
great
band,
hits,
right?
man. That song, Firewoman,
Yeah.
I love the rain,
Yeah, and then
Sanctuary. She sells Sanctuary. Yeah, I mean,
classics.
and they had such a different sound, because a lot of bands would be grouped in together. Like somehow the Cult was kind of grouped in with that whole new wave thing, but they were hard rocking too. It was trying to figure out where that, because no one lumped them in with all like the hair bands of the '80s.
Yeah.
They were playing their songs at clubs, like with all the new wave stuff. But no doubt about it, they were just rocking it.
Yeah, and they had a real bohemian, they didn't have that glam look. They had sort of this bohemian look and feel to them, and gritty. They were like kind of like pre Guns N' Roses before things got really sleazy and slimy.
Yes.
They were kind of that transition from like the super cheesy to the sleazy.
I think they had some Native American stuff going on.
Yeah. But
there was a lot of it. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, it was great music, right?
Absolutely.
Too bad we don't have great music anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, Bill?
Oh, that's how you come off sounding old.
Oh. But you know what? I'm not denying it. I'm not going to be in.
As soon as Gen Z hears you like, oh, there's no good music anymore, and they would say like, okay, boomer.
I know. It's like that's so funny. Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with being old. It used to be a respectable thing. You know what I'm saying? Right. You had experience. You had a couple of. You've been around the block, you've seen crap. I mean, There's value in that, and it always comes around full circle, right? It's the old guys. Sometimes what the old guys say is not all that stupid or nonsensical, right? And most of the times it's what the young people are doing that needs a little bit of, kicking of the tires. And usually it's the old guys that are good at doing it. So, or
there you go.
Girls and gals.
Thanks for all of us feeling better now today,
Yes, because we're old and we have an underrepresentation of young people.
Yes, this is Leonard Lee here to give you all you old guys pep talks. All you old guys who just lost your job to age discrimination. Oh. He's giving you a pep talk that you're really okay and that you really can still fit in with the Gen Z kids and millennials.
Yeah, it's like that SNL skit. What's his name? That guy.
Good enough. Smart enough. I'm part of it. I'm a great guy.
There you go. How's it going, Bill? What's up?
Hey, it's going, man. I mean, it's a real thing, right? I mean, the whole, I never recognized that I was old until I played ball, in high school, and thought I was going to do something in college and everything like that. But whenever I played ball, street ball, any of that, it was like dunking was no problem. When I realized I was old is when I could do it in my mind, but I couldn't do it on the court. that was a dose of reality
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I thought the way you're old is like if you were going to say something like, you're at the drugstore picking out the right color of Just for Men.
No, well, see, I don't have that problem, right?
Okay, all right.
I don't, and
No, I remember, our good, I always loved the Bad Boys movies. And when they finally made that third one, a year or two ago, after a long while. And of course, obviously Will Smith and what's the guy? I can't, his name. Martin Lawrence, obviously they're a lot older now, right? And there's a scene in the movie where Martin Lawrence is looking at Will Smith and his goatee, and Martin Lawrence is like, so what color Just for Men are you getting? And Will Smith kind of goes, yeah, it's number 34 or whatever. Dark.
That's it.
It was funny.
That is it. Yeah, no. But I'll tell you what, the one thing that I say is getting old beats the alternative.
Yes, I think I've heard that before, and you're right.
You're that?
Right. You could be taking a dirt nap.
Oh, getting dead.
Yes.
Getting old is better than getting dead.
It's really dark. Yes. It's yeah.
Well,
get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah. That's it.
You gotta live. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is. I still believe the adage that you're as old as you make yourself, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, stand active, stand healthy, stand working, keeping the mind active, reading, continuing to learn, challenge the stat quo, challenge the Gen Zers and millennials in terms of what they know and how they got to what they know.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. Yeah.
I love those conversations because
absolutely.
You're right. So much of what they're doing was already done for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And try not to get to that point where you're like, get off my lawn.
That's right.
Turn that noise down.
Me and my girls have conversations all the time, about the challenge. I'm like, when was the last time you went to the library?
Oh,
and they're like, huh? And I'm like, right.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was literally the thing,
Yes. You know what? I'm going to say I'm a big fan of public libraries. So just before you joined or whatever this morning, Leonard and I were talking about being able to find a place to go write. Like if you needed to write a book or an article or whatever, and you really need that focus. And sometimes you need to get away. And we were talking about this guy, his ex-Navy SEAL, Jack Carr, who had been writing a bunch of novels. That there's a new series on Amazon called The Terminal List, where they got Chris Pratt's playing the Navy SEAL lead in it. But this guy, Jack Carr, he just talks about, he gets on Airbnb and he'll go rent a cabin up in Park City, Utah for months just to get away and, have a routine to maybe sit by the fire or whatever and just start banging it out, having that focus. And so the tie back to libraries is, especially before there was lots of co-working places, because I've written a lot of business and computer books, and I would literally go to public libraries, and that's where I wrote most of those books. Just because I needed to get away from the house, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I go to bars to get away and focus.
Yeah.
But here's the weird thing. This whole episode is tying together again somehow with the common themes or interconnected themes. Because the last time I was at a bar, I sat next to the wife, a very chatty wife of an ex-Navy SEAL.
Which happens in San Diego.
I mean, far more often than anywhere else, because like what Rob and I were talking about is, I mean, it's not like
Coronado, man.
Yeah, you don't grow Navy SEAls on trees. I mean, there are very few of them in the world. They're kind of like, master sommeliers, there's only like 250 in the world.
That's probably how they think of themselves.
Yes.
Master sommeliers. Let me help you pick your wine. Yeah. No, that's a good point. But you're right. They're all there in San Diego. They're Coronado, absolutely.
And they're amazing individuals. I mean,
absolutely. And so what's going on in IoT, man? Anything?
Oh my God, consolidation. What is it? Semtech. You got to talk about Semtech.
But you're not surprised. You're not surprised, though, are you? Because I mean, look, right? I mean, this is. I look at this stuff, and it's going to happen. And it's going to happen in a huge way in other sectors. But I mean, when you look at the tellits, when you look at the
the tellit thing,
right. I mean, when you look at them,
yeah.
I'm going to say this, and this may be somewhat controversial, but it's me.
But when do you not ever say anything controversial? That's your thing, dude.
It's me. So, I mean, when you look at Sierra Wireless and all of the other modem providers, whether they were chips or anything like that, there was a time when Sierra Wireless was at the top of the game, and Tellit was like right there nipping on their heels. And then you had all of your other ones that were kind of taking up some of the smaller bits and pieces of the pie. QuickTel is killing the game as far as modules go.
Right.
Right. And that type of downward pressure is going to force you to a point where if you don't have an additional business model that's going to make it, you're going to get gobbled up.
Yeah.
You're
right. That it is interesting. I mean, so you're right. The first news was Tellit kind of carving out that part of tails. But
I don't know how you pronounce it. It's like French wines. You're always nervous.
We always screw it up in America.
Like
we see the th and we want to go and then the Europeans like, no, it's just But you're right. So Tellit grabbing that part of tails, and then Semtech, our buddies who are doing the LoRa stuff down in what's the name? It's they're just north of Los Angeles is where Semtech's based. And obviously I have tight connections with Semtech because
Camarillo, north.
Camarillo, Camarillo.
Nice area, by the way.
It is, I've been
very
up there.
Expensive. I used to hang out there when I was doing work for Amgen. Another industry.
Cool.
Anyways,
I want to give props to Alistair Fulton and Steve Hagendorfer at Semtech on that acquisition. And it's interesting because Semtech's been around for a long time, doing a lot of other stuff that's always been unrelated to LoRa. The LoRa thing only is if in the big scheme of things for Semtech is a recent phenomenon in the last decade. When they grabbed that technology, both LoRa and Sigfox were both invented in France, actually. And so then Semtech has the guys who invented LoRa, and they have all the patents and all that stuff there for that. And, that's where you have, it's interesting. I hear people talk about LoRaWAN all the time, every day, right? And you never hear them say Semtech, but make no mistake, there's no deal where Semtech is open sourced or letting the world have it. You have to buy everything from Semtech. You might think you're getting it from someone who's licensed it, but all that stuff 100% comes from Semtech. And so it is. They're crossing the streams. They're crossing the streams here with this Sierra Wireless thing. Cellular modules and stuff like that. Yeah. Because, I think what we've been watching is a battle-ish of LoRa versus cellular or other things, all these scenarios.
No.
Gosh, I certainly had to get religion doing a lot of this agriculture stuff. It's like, while I was at Ericsson, we were using cellular, but in my back of my mind, I was like, this is insane. There's no way these farmers could afford to have thousands of cellular-based sensors on their farms. It's unaffordable. It's even with low cost, MVNOs and folks like Teal and stuff like that, it still just adds up and it's real money. And so, and that's why LoRa and LoRaWAN have just taken off. Because as I like to describe it to people, it's like, well, when you bought a Wi-Fi router for your house, you bought it one time and now you have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And you're not paying every day to have Wi-Fi in your house. And that's how LoRa is. You build your own network and it's yours and you're done. You still need backhaul somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, you can have backhaul, but you might have one thing that's handling your backhaul for everything. Because, like, I'll tell these farmers, it's like, hey, put your big antenna for LoRa on your big packing house or whatever.
Yeah,
there's a great ecosystem of IoT devices and sensors that are LoRa enabled. And then you get the LoRa, they're kind of their gateways. And, because obviously the way you're sending bits and bytes that way is not over IP typically with them. So you have to convert it. But yeah, it's such a no-brainer. It's like, yep, buy it once and Bob's your uncle.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, so when you said that, a lot of people weren't saying Semtech, when that, was kind of coming up, let's go back, maybe 5 or 6 years. When it was just coming in. It's interesting because for me, I looked at the architecture and I was like, there's only 2 people making money here, Semtech and Actility. There were literally, there's 2 people making money. Everyone else is getting connectivity.
Yes.
And they're not making money on it because the monetization was a challenge. It still is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
And so I went in and my whole thing was, I think it's cool. It's the whole notion of the technology suited for specific use cases, and I think you're right. Agriculture is perfect for that. The thing, it wasn't the ability to move the bits across the network. It was, I still have this intrinsic desire to want to fuse data to see different things, and it makes it difficult to do that. If you have more than one owner of the network, right? So if it's a general purpose network and everybody kind of just deploys their stuff, network server, unless you have abstractions built into it or built out of it, if you have an abstraction layer that then allows you to do that, the keys are owned by the key holder. So it's like, you're not getting my data, I'm not getting your data, and there's no way, that we're going to share data. The security piece of it worried me. I think it still does, unless it's a continuously powered device. So all of that said, it's like that's why I'm kind of excited to try to make my way to Amsterdam to see what the hell is going on over there.
So it's good to be controversial and stir the pot. Because you're right. There's all the people who have gone on you're right, the Things Network and Helium, and lots of people have been using LoRa and the LoRa WAN higher level standard to build their own networks that you can join. But there is nothing that prevents you from just buying the Semtech gear and have your own private LoRa network. And again, and that probably irritates Winky and everybody else. But like when I'm talking to farmers, I was like, you don't need to join anybody's thing. And it doesn't cost a lot of money. Get your own base station thing and do the one-time cost. We're not talking about a lot of money here. And then you're not having to worry about sharing anything with anybody. It's your network. You got a farm. I'm going to cover 5 or 10, kilometer radius around your packing house and just do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's that whole In-N-Out burger analogy, right? Just create one burger stand that generates revenue or generates value. Don't worry about spreading yourself too thin. And
don't have a big menu.
Yeah.
That's what we love about In-N-Out. It's simple. On one hand, you have the Cheesecake Factory with a Bible that they hand you. And then on the other end, you have In-N-Out Burger.
Papa Do's.
Just oh my God.
Out of control menus and massive serving sizes. Nobody can eat all of it. It's ridiculous. But
so Bill, you just said, are you guys going to go to Amsterdam?
I'm working on it. I hit up Inky and he said, let me get you some information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, look, I'm trying to be there.
Yeah. I'm going to try to make it. I thought I was going to make it, but I have some client conflicts coming up.
Yeah, I've got a lot of conferences all happening in September.
Oh, dude, it's like
it's crowded. It's very crowded.
Traveling most of the time in September and October, and looks like November. I mean, it's like the end of the year is becoming pretty.
I'm going to be at Houston for this IoT and oil and gas event in early-ish September. Bill, you should come down, man.
I should.
Absolutely. And so I'm doing that. I've got I got an event that's really close back here in Seattle. I'm part of this Washington State IoT Council, and we put on an event every year. And so we've got that going on, and that's getting really close to when I'd have to fly to Amsterdam. And then our IoT World thing we usually do in Santa Clara, we're going to do in Austin this time around. And so I'm looking.
Are you on the advisory board?
I am.
So am I.
Oh yeah.
So I will be there hanging.
Oh my God. Party then.
Oh yeah. Totally.
This is like an amazing group.
So we'll definitely be in Austin. Is that also in September or is that October? I'm trying to remember.
That's in September.
Okay.
I think because Sean was
Suzuki. Yeah. So no, you're right. And so we got to juggle. And so that's what I worry about my ability to go to Amsterdam is if it's like it's packed in the middle of a bunch of things. Yeah. So I'm not sure.
It's pretty nutty.
It is. Yeah.
So, I noticed something about what's happening in this episode is there's like a lot of Ghostbusters type stuff going on here. You're talking about crossing the streams, and then you talk about like some master or some crap like that.
Oh yeah, the Keymaster and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. There's got to be some kind of IoT analogy that we can draw off of Ghostbusters. Well, actually, we already did. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
The streams.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you before. So I have to actually jump in 3 minutes. But before I go, I have to say, Leonard, the hype machine post.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, what do you mean? The hype machine.
Your fatigue.
Oh, fatigue. Yeah.
Fatigue.
Yeah.
I was on the toilet and it just came to my head.
Oh my God. I thought you were about to say I was on the toilet and it just came out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, quite literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to put words in my mouth. I tell you, I do a lot of thinking on the can, man. It's just the way I am.
There you go.
Maybe I should stop going to bars and just sit on the toilet all day.
That quiet time.
Write your next book on the toilet.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I thought that was that quiet, but okay.
It was. That was a good post. That was really good because a lot of people were driving so much business or trying to drive business through this hype machine.
Gotta stop it.
That's unreal.
Unreal.
It's like we've lost touch with reality. Like marketers, PR people, all this stuff. It's just like, we've talked about it when we were at Mobile World Congress. With just within a week or two of people mentioning the metaverse and Meta doing their thing, and we're like, and then all of a sudden we saw all these vendors at Mobile World Congress all in with the metaverse, and I'm like, oh my God, they're drinking the Kool-Aid that fast, and they're already on the bandwagon. They don't even know what they don't know, but they're just like, we're in, man, metaverse.
Yeah. and like the other point I wanted to make, and I probably will put it on that post at some point, is the credibility issue. At some point, you can only spew so much of this stuff before your credibility it just starts to wane. It doesn't matter that people forget. Eventually, you just become known as like a source of BS.
Yeah.
And for the PR folks and the marketing folks out there, who says your job is supposed to be that easy? I mean, it's great. You get to go to parties, you get the analysts and the media together to have all these nice little events and briefings and stuff. but your job, no one ever told you that your job is supposed to be cush and easy,
Yeah.
And there has to be the countervailing force that basically filters out all the BS and holds brands accountable for the crap that they put out there. Because,
Right.
it goes back to what we're saying. For me, I think it's almost like a patriotic thing, especially for the US, where we're just consuming speculative nonsense to a frightening degree with all this meme investing and all this stuff. We have always been the best at allocating capital, whether it's through free market or the invisible hand and all the stuff. We were always the best, but we are not the best anymore because of this speculative crap. And you made fun of me of attending the Milken thing. The weird thing about the Milken conference, the big takeaway I got there is these old guard financial guys who actually started the speculative BS. They get it. Do you know what I'm saying? They know what they did. They know the genie that came out of that bottle, and then they actually want to kind of rein that stuff back in because it's going to affect our competitiveness, man. I mean,
do you feel like those guys learned their lesson?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, you mentioned Milken. I mean, he served his time. It's not like he got away with anything. Yeah, so they learned something. Yeah. Hey, Bill, take care, man. I'm glad you jumped on and kept, helped us keep it real, bro.
Absolutely, every time.
Bill's just here every day to keep carrying the flag for the Dallas Cowboys.
That's right. I'll catch you guys.
Okay, brother.
All right, say hi to Jerry Jones for me. All right.
Yeah. I'll do that. I got the meeting with him now.
Yeah,
work on your hops, man. Work on your hops, man. You're not that old.
I'm going to have to. Something's wrong.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Take care. Oh, that's funny. That's too funny.
That's awesome, man. Woo.
I don't know. It's just I'm glad you guys liked it. I mean, I think
it's good
collectively as a community.
You hope it resonates with people, and sinks in. You're right. We all get pretty jaded these days about marketing and all that crazy stuff and the hype machine to drive not just individual products, but to drive entire movements and and everybody's like, yeah, we're on board.
Yeah. I mean, it's that, like that diagram that I put out where, it's just, let's flatten the curve. If you ride too high up the hump of nonsense, you get in trouble. I mean, we know this. We know this. You know what I'm saying? And our whole, what we should be doing is we should be trying to flatten that crap so that you don't have this misallocation, poor allocation of capital, poor allocation of creative energy, all the stuff that goes into these things that are wasted. We minimize that. I mean, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah. No,
you know what I'm saying? And I think that's why over the years I've developed this real, bad taste in my mouth for hype. It's just, and and it's tough. It's not an easy task to get to, the ground truth. It's really hard.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You got to keep it real. And I think that will serve you well. And it has, because that's your job. You're an advisor. You're telling people what they should do, what the future is going to look like. And they're hearing similar noise from other people who are telling them some kind of hype BS about the future.
Yeah.
And then they're hearing the real thing from you. And they're like, well, who do I trust? And it's easy to get sucked in by the other guys because it's very attractive.
Oh, yeah, it's fun. And usually I'm telling people things they don't want to hear. They'd rather do all the sugar-coated BS.
Right.
It's like what we say, Kool-Aid. Tastes good, but it's not good for your health in the long term. At some point you're going to have to pay. And I will tell you right now, I know a lot of companies. I work with a lot of companies that have had to make that painful pivot. But the thing is, many companies that don't have a game don't have a place to pivot. Yeah. Like a particular company that we know about that kind of does like crypto stuff. Not naming any names because they keep changing it.
Right.
Right. But I mean,
every Monday morning they have an executive meeting. Well, what are we pivoting to today, this week, guys? Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But speaking of having to keep it real and stuff, I got to go back out and do the ag thing.
Got
to go to a great event. Like they've been doing it for like 3 years. It's kind of a test farm orchard, way out in Eastern Washington, and so the event is it's like a tech day for agriculture. So you had a lot of the big vendors who are selling tech for agriculture out there. I want to show you a picture here. This picture is a sprayer, and it's in there going in between apple orchards, up and down the rows. That big triangle thing on top is where this water or chemical or whatever you need to spray is.
Yeah.
So the takeaway from this, it was a really interesting story. Listening to the entrepreneurs, they're farmers who built this. So when you watch this thing, what it does is it's like a 400-gallon tank. And it's fully autonomous, 4-wheel drive, 4-wheel steering, LiDAR sensors, and it just slowly drives at about 2 miles an hour in between the rows of your orchard or your vineyard or whatever, and it's just spraying. And it was great hearing the founder talk about it. They're called, I think the name of the company is Gus or something like the GUSS or something. And people he goes, well, we got to start in 2014, and we built it for ourselves because we're farmers, and they're in California. And he goes, just like you, we have a massive labor shortage on farms, and we talk about there's a labor shortage in factories too, and so we needed help, and so we decided to help ourselves. And so we started cobbling together this automated thing. It wasn't automated at first, but it kind of grew. And then pretty soon they built their own thing. And so with less manpower, they're having this thing be able to go up and down the rows spraying like they would need to. And then it became a business when nearby farmers started taking notice. And they're like, hey, that's really cool. I want one of those. And they started off little by little. They made a few of them for nearby farmers, and then it just turned into a business. And it's so cool. And I feel like that was the opposite of hype, and it's real innovation from real needs and real practical stuff. There was a real practical need. And they said, well, what if we had a giant tank on wheels that was smart enough to go and do it on its own? It was cool.
Valuable innovation. High value innovation. It's like, they just created a friggin' In-N-Out, double burger.
Give me a double.
And friggin' it from there.
What was interesting,
or whatever,
what was interesting, and I don't want to beat up on our good friends at John Deere, but
why not?
About 100 yards away, in the same apple orchard where they're doing all these demos of all this tech. So John Deere is there, and they're showing using a John Deere tractor pulling a tank that's doing spraying. And they're hot to trot about that, and they're showing how cool it is. And I was like, and I stepped back and I looked at both sides. I saw the John Deere tractor pulling a tank, and I saw this fully autonomous thing doing it on its own. And it was like, oh my God, I'm watching, it's like future shock. And I was like, I wonder if anybody here gets what they're seeing right now. This is what disruption is. John Deere is selling the present and selling what is. And these guys have invented the future.
What's obvious to them, right? What's obvious to John Deere. But, the folks on the ground, their realities are probably different. The way they look at stuff is different. But if they have like guys like you, and honestly, you have been kind of a pioneer in all of this, given, you've been talking a lot about it. You built a company and a platform around this stuff. You have people like you who can come in with the technical know-how and supporting, knowledge. You can help all kinds of crazy stuff happen on the ground. That's what has to happen.
No, you're absolutely right. it'll be interesting to see if it, and so we all talk about different, we always find analogies in the past of, your Harvard Business Review things, how things didn't work out. And so I'm sitting there looking at the John Deere tractor, and they're doing what they should do. They are selling tractors. They know farmers have tractors, and they go, here's an attachment to your tractor to do this. And I totally get it. But I couldn't help but think about Blockbuster Video saying, we know there's this new thing like Netflix, but we're making so much money off of late fees and VHS tapes. We're just going to stick with it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm seeing John Deere sticking with what they've got. And I don't blame them. That's where you got to start. Yeah. But I hope that they're looking down through the apple orchards and seeing this fully autonomous thing and going, oh my God, that's the future. Here, I'm going to play our audience here. I took a quick video. Let's.
Oh, you know what? It looks like a Pratt Whitney turbojet engine.
Yeah, it does. It's crazy. And when it came out the other side, it turns around and makes sure it doesn't miss any rows. And when it started heading towards us, it's like beeping. And then
is so cool.
And then we purposely got in front of it, and it's LiDAR and everything. It knows we're there, and it's stopping, and then it's turning and doing the other rows. And I was just like, wow. And so, that's what innovation is. That's what disruption looks like. Old and new right in front of your face at the same time.
Yeah.
I often hear about, this is a weird example, but future shock and disruption, at the beginning of World War II, not quite the beginning, but there was, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, but there was this notion of Polish noblemen on horseback riding out and being met by Nazi Panzer tanks. And so can you imagine that photograph of Panzer tanks and guys on horseback and going, that's future shock. That's disruption. That's,
Yeah.
I can only imagine that if John Deere's smart, they'll acquire these guys' company.
Yeah.
And then you'll start having green versions of that autonomous sprayer that's painted green like all the John Deere equipment is.
Well, they could have done that too, or they could have used a more creative color, like purple. Like something else. I mean, there's enough green in most agricultural settings.
Yes. Yes.
Be a little bit fashion forward.
It was funny. So I had a few minutes. I was given, 3 or 5 minutes to get up and talk in front of. There's about 100, 150 growers there, and then other vendors were there. And so I actually talked to them about digital twins in agriculture. And I said, I was like, well, this is going to be. I was thinking like Bill Nye, the science guy. It's like we're going to do a science class here, but trying to explain to them why they should care.
Yeah.
And how you would model plants or blocks of plants and, whatever the crops happen to be, and telling them how you can put the KPIs and the analytics and stuff like that and how it all works, and about drive automation, because I think that's what a lot of the folks need. In fact, it's funny. I remember when I was early on at Ericsson, and I remember, I worked for this woman, Osa, who's an SVP there. And I remember her coming back from the World Economic Forum there in Davos, I guess in 2019. And she was like, the big number one takeaway from all the executives, all the CEOs of every company at Davos was automation is the number one thing they want. And you're like, oh, okay. Now you can read into that and go, I want to get rid of employees. I want automation so I can have robots and computers doing everything instead of people. But if you step back, that's what it is. And so when we talk about agriculture or factories, industrial stuff, those are both areas where you don't have to worry about displacing people with tech, because there's already not enough people to get the job done today.
Yeah.
And so those people need help to fill those gaps, to augment humans,
Yeah. I think people are always going to have a role. I mean, I was thinking my solar panels on my house are getting dirty.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks think, oh yeah, okay, we can put a wind farm up, or we can put solar panels up, and oh geez, there's going to be no maintenance, and it's just all going to operate by itself, low cost. I was like thinking, okay, no, that's not true. Wind farms there's a lot of maintenance that goes into it, and it's very expensive to get a truck to roll out and basically climb up those massive towers. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And then now, even for like our homes, these solar panels, they get dirty. And so when there's too much dirt and dust that accumulates on top, the efficacy of the system goes down.
Absolutely.
So, you need people to go up
suckers
crap off. Yeah. So, I think there's always new opportunities as we have to think forward. But, one of the things I really love about what the U.S. government is doing with all of these, competitive, what do you call it? Competition or competitiveness bills is that there's funding to modernize our workforce to a certain degree. I mean, still, the strategy has to be great, and execution and appropriation of capital or the funding needs to be done well. But the intent is there. I think that's super important because, to your earlier point of automation getting rid of people, that can happen if we're not modernizing our workforces and creating opportunities. That's that soft side of the problem that we have to figure out. But that's one of the encouraging things that I see. At least, our government is looking at how do we evolve our economy, and that workforce piece is really important.
Sure.
As much as the automation, right? Because if you just automate and you don't help people modernize their skill set, either they're going to do that crap in China or Vietnam, and our folks get double screwed. Do you know what I'm saying? And so,
isn't it interesting? Like futurists from decades ago thought by now we would be so automated, most people would have this different lifestyle, leisure. Doing this other stuff, and they really thought about some kind of utopian sci-fi imagined world or something, I guess, that where we'd be by now. It hadn't really worked out that way.
Yeah, I think it's because individually we all want more.
Yeah.
So we take on more hours to make more money, to do more so that we can be more competitive and get compensated more than the next guy. And so it's a cycle. You know what I'm saying?
Have you been hearing lately, or, I know certainly I've heard a lot last several months, a growing pitch around the 4-day work week. I've been reading during COVID, different companies have been testing it. Different countries have been testing it.
Really?
Yeah. And they're kind of basically, I don't know if it'll happen or not, or it may happen in pockets, but the 4-day work week, and people are getting more done in the 4 days and then having a 3-day weekend kind of thing. I don't know.
I'd love that, but I have my own business, so it really doesn't matter.
Right. No, you're right.
It only matters if I have employees.
If you got your own business, you got to make that money, right?
Yeah, I'd love a 4-day work week.
Yeah.
But, actually what I'm seeing is a lot of reversal in, like we mentioned this before, the work from home thing, all this, what do you call it? The home is the enterprise stuff. I think that's all reversing because now we have corporations going, okay, enough fun. Let's get serious. Come back into the office. Enough of this hybrid work, stuff.
Yeah.
We'll give you some flexibility, but it's like, think about all the big tech companies. All of a sudden they're going, all right, some of you guys may not deserve to be here, or you might not be fit to work here anymore. Basically saying you guys are starting to become dead wood.
Yeah.
So, either start coming into the office, start acting like you actually have a job.
Right.
Come in and let's start competing. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I think, all of this all of this stuff is reversing.
Totally. No, you're right.
But it was predictable. It's just that, again, it's another one of those hypes that quickly deflated, and now, everyone's trying to figure out how do we get back, how do we get people into the office, and if they don't want to come into the office and be part of the culture and provide mentoring to young folks who are craving mentorship.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, come on, think about it. When you were young, just starting off, what was the number one thing that you wanted in a career other than a nice paycheck? Is to get mentored so that you can develop into what it is that you aspired to become, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. You needed even when it was. I remember even needing basic stuff like at the very, very beginning. Just show me the ropes. Show me some basic. I'll give you a stupid example. When I was working through my way through college, and I worked at this chemical company, I was working in the accounting department. And so it was, I was working in accounts payable and doing that stuff. Yeah. So I'm just a kid.
Most hated department in finance.
I'm working my way through college, and I'm managing all the invoices for different chemical plants and stuff like that. But here's something I didn't. This will sound silly to people, but this is a long time ago. And then it's almost like you always see the movies where people working in a coal mine or whatever, and the big siren or the horn goes off, and it means it's the end of the shift or you can go home. And so I remember at the company, at whatever it was, 4:30 or 5, it was that time, and then everybody would get up and leave. And so I'm working with all these people and in that department, and right at that moment they'd get up and leave and go home. And so I did too. I didn't think anything of it. But then luckily, senior manager there just said, hey, if you want to make sure you have a chance to get ahead in the company, you can't just get up and leave when the siren goes off. You need to stick around. And even if it's just perception that you stuck around, even if you stuck around 15 minutes longer or 30 minutes longer and someone saw you, that made all the difference. This is ancient little tidbit I got as I was still a kid working through college, and it's still, and so that was early basic mentorship, not deep mentorship. It was just a tip, but
it's like sometimes it's that simple advice that's the most important advice, right? For me, man, I'm telling you, it's literally being on a project and having lunch with my manager. You know what I'm saying? Shooting the crap. You know, while we're at like TGIF Fridays, out in like some weird, like little rural area or, a town that we've never been before, and just talking. And then, people who are managers, people who are good mentors love to mentor. It's fun for them. I love doing it.
Yeah, totally.
But you know how friggin' hard it is to do it on a Zoom call? The best mentoring happens in the field, man, when you're like in the trenches, right?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, when you have a real problem to solve.
Yeah.
And you're in that conference room, and after the conference room, you're still thinking about it as you go out to dinner or you go and to lunch, figuring out, okay, how do we work this algorithm so that we can make it more efficient, so that it can actually run in within a reasonable time period? How do we refactor everything?
Yeah.
And then, there's so much learning that happens through that collaborative and face-to-face that face-to-face collaboration. I just don't see it. I know that it doesn't happen over Zoom. If anything, it pushes everyone out to do things individually, which I think is, everyone talks about agile organization and agile ways of working. That's not how agile works. Think about extreme programming. That's like literally a test guy, development guy, and the business guy, like in the same friggin' room working constantly together. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So none of these processes are conducive to this virtual remote stuff or the metaverse. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Oh. can't underestimate and undervalue the human engagement. The
Totally.
human factor.
So. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Wow, a lot of stuff today.
I know.
Our coffee talk.
Ghostbusters.
2 mergers.
2 mergers.
That's pretty wild, automated farming. Yeah, crazy stuff. There's a lot going on out there. I hear a lot, we have one of our buddies, Rick Bellata, who's always talking to us in the background. And he
feeding us lines.
but he also believes, and he might be right, that this whole cellular connectivity, that whole space is just nothing but a race to the bottom.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Absolutely. That's just based on cost, and it's just going to just race straight to the bottom. And it's just about, and he might be right, I always try to remember that economics is more powerful than any other force in all these tech things,
Yeah.
People got to have the money to do it.
Right.
It doesn't matter how cool it is.
Yeah, exactly. Or you have to be solving a big enough problem where that economic dynamic doesn't play out, and I totally agree with them. And we talk about that all the time, but the key though, I think, is in order for any of this stuff to even begin to scale out and become viable economically is, solid piggybacking strategies. Is like how to build upon existing infrastructure, or if you do lay out infrastructure, how do you make it multi-purpose and multi-protocol? And that's probably the only way, which is kind of the way. I mean, I've seen that opportunity. I see what's happening with a lot how 5G is evolving. Whether they know it or not, they're kind of moving in that direction. But with consolidations like what we're seeing, deep in IoT, like with Semtech and what Telet's doing. There's a play there, but the question is how quickly can they scale out, and how quickly can they piggyback across as many things as possible, which is but it has to have, like you said, man, dude, you have to have like a few burger joints before you can start to friggin' link them together and make them an in and out. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like what that one particular company has done is they have scaled out the infrastructure, quote unquote, infrastructure network to a point where they cannot sustain it with revenue.
Yeah,
network revenue. That's a great way of, like, first of all, investors losing money, but it's also a great way of killing off your platform.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's not the way you do it, but if you take it sort of a grassroots approach and you make revenue and profit and realize value straight off the bat, like your little agricultural R2D2 that you showed.
Yeah.
People will buy that. And that's an expensive piece of machine, and they will connect that friggin' thing and try to get data. I mean, if you can multi-purpose that thing,
right?
As it's spraying, you're actually monitoring and looking at the condition. You're taking the condition information of what you're spraying before you spray it.
Right.
Then that's a huge optimization, right?
Absolutely. No, you're totally right. There's some.
But fundamentally, you're dealing with something an application that's already highly valuable and is worth connecting. And like what you said, it doesn't have to be this public thing. It can just be your friggin' cheap ass private one.
Could you imagine if those guys with that autonomous sprayer thing showed up at TechCrunch Disrupt to pitch that? Would they do well? Would they get their butts kicked? Whatever.
Oh, they would get laughed out, I think, because it's ag.
Right.
Which is, it's not flashy enough. It doesn't have the network effect or all these other ridiculous, friggin' speculative scale out. It doesn't fit those schemes. You know what I'm saying? Right. Which is dude, I'm telling you, man, after, everyone's talking about ag now for IoT. Everyone. I mean, no one's talking about IoT, but the only thing that they talk about around IoT is friggin' ag.
Isn't that funny? Who knew that they would finally catch up to all that? Realize there's,
That's course.
Yeah.
It's good stuff, man. All right. Take us out, brother.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us today on IoT Coffee Talk. You can always find us at IoTCoffeeTalk.com. We're your favorite YouTubers. Today, we talked about a bunch of consolidation happening. We've talked about mergers with Telit and Tails and Simtech acquiring Sierra Wireless. You're probably wondering, how did Sierra Wireless get small enough or Simtech get big enough for that acquisition to happen?
No.
I don't know. Maybe there is a race to the bottom happening somewhere. I'm not sure. Definitely saw some cool stuff with ag and innovation. Anyway,
R2D2.
R2D2, there you go. That's the future. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next week on the internet.
The interwebs.
Yeah. Adios, dude.
Bye.
All right.